It's Matt, the Homebrew Hero here. Today I'm going to be brewing an IPA. I'm trying to clone the Deschutes Brewery's fresh squeezed IPA. If anybody's had that, it has amazing tropical fruits and citrus flavors that just burst out of it. They don't use any kind of fruit juice or citrus at all. It all comes from the hops. So we're gonna be careful which hops we're choosing today. So let's get started. Let's just go over some of the ingredients that we're gonna be using. Of course, for our base malt, we got 10 pounds of pale malt 2-row. Then we got a pan of Crystal 80 here. That's gonna help with our head retention, our color, so we can get a little bit darker color. The Munich, got a pound of that. Munich 10, it's going to give us a little bit of a reddish color, sweet malty flavors. As far as our yeast for this IPA, we're using this American L by White Labs. This is going to benefit us with a really clean, neutral taste. It's a blended yeast, so there's I think there's 3 different kinds of yeast in there, one of which is the California L yeast. For our hops, we're doing an IPA, so obviously we're using a lot of hops. We got Mosaic, that's gonna have strong fruit flavors, piney aroma. We got our Citra here. This is what's gonna give us our citrus flavors, tropical fruit. For the bittering, I'm gonna be using this Chinook in place of the Nugget. Nugget would be what they use for bittering in the fresh squeezed IPA by Deschutes Brewery. All right, let's just take a look at the equipment we're using. This is a 10-gallon homemade mash tun. Just made it out of a Home Depot cooler. Bought this part on Amazon, and it just kind of hooks in there, and then you can buy that on Amazon too. This baby here is made out of aluminum, so it heats up and cools off real quick, and it's cheaper than still. For our first step, we're gonna heat up our strike water. The strike water is just the water that we're gonna be putting into the mash tun to get the grains to the right temperature so we can convert those starches over to sugars. We're just gonna do one single mash rest at 154. That's just kind of right in between. Most homebrewers go with around 150, 154, just one single rest. You can do other, like protein rests and all that kind of stuff. I've never really messed with that just because this is so much easier. You can use tools like Beersmith to do your step mashing if you're doing the mash steps like that. So we're gonna need a quart of hot water for every pound of grain. We got 12 pounds of grain, so we need 12 quarts. So we're gonna start filling that up. 32 ounces, that's a quart. And then we're gonna heat it up to 171, and that hopefully is going to get us right where we want to be to hit our temperature of 154. Okay, so we got our strike water heating up here. If you're using something like this, it heats up pretty quick for that initial strike water because there's not really that much water in there. We got 12 quarts, and we're going to heat that up to 171. Oh, we're getting a little hot. Better take that off. Got the temperature where we wanted it. Our strike water to 171. Poured it in there. Just gonna let it sit in there just a minute or two to heat up the walls. And then we're gonna pour all that in there and stir it in. And this is definitely easier to do if you have somebody helping you, because then you can have somebody stirring it while you're pouring it in, but pour most of it in. Stir it up real good. Don't want any dough balls. Goes in our Crystal 80. That's going to give us such a beautiful color. Some caramely notes mixed with the citrus from the hops and the fruit. Oh yeah. Okay. Now we're going to close it up just for a minute or two. And then take a temperature reading, make sure we're at least close to where we're supposed to be. We're gonna open this up and just make sure our temperature's where it's supposed to be. Oh, look at that. What? That's a little hot actually. Let's make sure it doesn't go up any hotter. Yeah, we're sitting real close where we want to be. So I'm gonna put the lid back on here, and we're gonna let it sit for an hour and a half to get all those starches converted over to sugar. Okay, so just getting my hops ready. I need half an ounce of the Mosaic at 2 different points during the boil. It's very handy to have one of these. I think I got it for like 12 bucks or something. It was cheap. You can use something like this. I keep it in my freezer and I just put all my hops in it, or open hops. It keeps it fresh so you don't get like nasty flavors from the food that's in the freezer in your hops. You want to keep these as fresh as possible. I'd imagine you could even use them up to a year and they'd still be pretty good. Pour this in there till we got 0.5 ounces. Okay, so we got 0.5 ounces there, so we can safely assume that that's the same amount in there too. This Mosaic, this one smells wonderful. I'm smelling like strong fruit and citrus. Like, I'm gonna have to use these more often. These smell fantastic. All right, so it looks like we have about 10 minutes left until our mash is gonna be done mashing. So we're gonna start getting our sparge water ready. Now the general rule with sparge water is you're gonna want half a gallon for every pound of grain you have. I usually just fill this as full, just about as full as I can get it, just so I have extra water in case, and so I don't have to reach down there as far to get the water after it gets lower. We're doing a 90-minute boil, so our pre-volume we're going to need is 6.79 gallons. I'm going to fill this just as full as I can possibly get it. And also I wanted to quickly mention, as far as your yeast, like if you have one of these White Labs ones and you're not going to do a starter, make sure you take it out 3 to 6 hours before you're going to pitch it, and shake it up real well before you pitch it. If you are going to do a starter, make sure you start that like 12 hours before if you can, 18 hours, somewhere around there. I generally do not do a starter and haven't seen any need to. I've always had good fermentations unless it's over 1070. Okay, we got our sparge water going. You're gonna want to get this sparge water up to 170. Okay, it has been an hour and a half. We're gonna check our temperatures. Yeah, see, we stayed pretty good. That's about right where we want it anyways. You can use some iodine if you want to test whether it's all the starches are converted over or not, but if it's been even 60 minutes, you're good. Okay, so we're gonna get a few quarts and we're gonna drain that out to clear this up, and then we're gonna pour it right back on top up here. Comes. Ooh, look at that color. It's like a deep red. Oh, not too deep. Oh, oh, oh. It'll get stuck too for the first little bit, but after you get going, it does pretty good. If you're using wheat, you may want to use some rice hulls. I wouldn't recommend making an IPA unless you were also drinking one as well. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's good. Collected 1 quart, and we're gonna pour it right back on top. Probably do this 1 or 2 more times, and then it'll be good to start collecting our work. Just do it pour it gently on top. You don't want to disturb your grain bed. So we're still clearing up that work. Got it a little hot on accident, the sparge water, a little under 180, so we're just going to let it cool off with the lid off so we can get that down to 170. It's coming out pretty clear now, so I think after I'm done collecting just 1 more quart and pouring it back on top, that we'll be done and ready to collect. So we are ready to start collecting our wort. We're going to need 6.79 gallons of this before we can boil it. So you want to drain this very slowly. We want to get all the sugars out. No more than a trinkle like that. This is probably going to take an hour to an hour and a half. So I have my bucket marked here so you can see where we need to get to. That's 5 gallons. The line there is about 6. And then this dot here, that's about 6.79. So we're going to just drain a little bit of that out before we start our sparge, which I've had the heat off on this for about 5 minutes or more and almost got it down to 170 where we want it again. We are ready to do a sparge. Got our water at 170 exactly. Been draining this for just a couple minutes. So we're gonna do probably 2 or 3 quarts just to get it about 1 inch above the grain bed, and then let it drain some more. And then we're just gonna keep it at that level, about an inch above the grain bed. This is called batch sparging. We're gonna do this until we have 6.79 gallons. Clipping that. That's about that high. And the reason I pour it into this is so we don't disturb the grain bed. We want to just trinkle it all, and not just that, but we want to spread it over the entire area with water. And like I said, this is going to take about an hour, hour and a half. Usually takes me an hour and a half. And I'll get back to you then when we're done doing that. We are just about there. Almost full. So now we're going to pour all this hot wort into here, and we're going to start our boil. Look at that color. Get this baby going. So probably take a good 10 minutes maybe. 15 minutes, get that boiling. All right, we are boiling. So we're gonna add our first hop addition, the Chinook. We're gonna put a whole ounce in there. This is gonna be boiled an entire 90 minutes. That 90 minutes is gonna get a lot of bitterness out of this. Probably not much aroma, probably not much flavor out of this one, but plenty of bitterness. We're at 25 minutes. So we are going to add our Mosaic hops. This is just half an ounce. Just throw that in there, stir it up, and then we're gonna put in another half ounce of that same hop in about 10 minutes from now. We're adding our hops at 15 minutes. I don't have enough hop bags, so I'm just gonna actually just chuck this in there. I'm gonna filter it all out with a bigger bag later anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We are at flame out, which means I'm turning this baby off, and we're going to throw in an ounce of our Citra and an ounce of our Mosaic. We'll throw those both in there, maybe stir it in a little bit. And the thing about flame out is this is the best way you're going to get those aromas out of this. So we're going to let that sit for 10 minutes, and then we're going to start to cool this off. Okay, so we waited 10 minutes and then we pulled all the hops out. Now we have it in our bath to cool it off. And I don't have a wort chiller yet. That's what I'm investing in next. Hopefully Father's Day I'll get one of those. Until then, we cool it the old-fashioned way. Cut it down to almost 140. In the summer though, the water doesn't get quite as cold, so I have to use ice in here to get it cooled down quick enough. This will probably take another 20-25 minutes to cool, and then we are gonna pour it in our bucket and pitch our yeast. Okay, so we got our wort cooled off. You wanna get it down to around 80 or 75 degrees. I use this big paint straining bag. I use them for the smaller ones for hops, but this gallon sized one I use to filter out my wort when I pour it in there. We're gonna pour this in here. And by the way, all this is sanitizing everything. And then, look at that. Look at all that. Just strain that all out. The hop bags they sell at the brew stores, they're like way overpriced, and they do the same thing this does. You want to save some money? Go to Home Depot or Lowe's. So now before we pitch our yeast, we're going to take a sample so we can get our original gravity reading. Once again, this is all sanitized. You don't want to just stick anything in there. That's what she said. So we're going to get our original gravity and record it. It should be somewhere around 10:55, more than likely. Kind of gotta wait for the foam to die down a little before you can really tell where it's at. But so now we're gonna pitch our yeast. Shake that well before you put it in there. Now we're gonna strap the lid on there, put an airlock on there, and I'm gonna let it sit at least 2 weeks. We'll add our 2 ounces of hops at the last 7 days, so we'll see that. It's been been a week since we put our IPA in the primary fermenter. Actually gonna do my dry hopping now, and we'll leave them in there for 7 more days. The primary fermentation, that's done. If this was a Belgian ale or something, you definitely wanna leave it a little longer. We're gonna spray everything down with this cleaner. So this is that Star San sanitizer. So you can put these in hot bags if you want. I always use like a big paint strainer right before I bottle anyway, so we'll get everything out of it. And most of it will sink to the bottom, I'm sure. So the benefits of dry hopping is you're gonna get the maximum amount of aroma and flavor out of your hops. You're not gonna get any bitterness at all. It's gonna be all flavor and aroma. Using an ounce of Citra and an ounce of Mosaic. So hopefully this is gonna give us that strong, fruity, and citrusy flavor that we're looking for in this IPA. Okay, so we got our lid off. It's still pretty foamy, like there's a lot of business going on there still and whatnot, but any other tool. Put that back in my closet, let it sit another week, and then we should be good. That's it. That's how you make an IPA.